Today we're going to talk about referencing with BibTeX. My name is Grace O'Hanlon. I'm an environment and geography librarian here at the University of Manitoba, and I'll let Justin introduce himself if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. I'm Justin Fuhrer. I'm also a science librarian at the University of Manitoba. I look after physics and astronomy and mathematics departments.
Great. So as you will have maybe heard at the beginning, this workshop is being recorded and is going to be available on the library's website and probably the library's YouTube channel as well. For that reason, we're not going to be asking any personal information or identifying information throughout. And you can ask us questions at any point during the presentation in the chat, and we will endeavor to answer them. So here's what we're hoping to do today. First is to explore the tools that are available to make citation generation easier when writing in LaTeX. And I've heard other people say LaTeX, and I'm going to say LaTeX. So if you say LaTeX, that's okay. And I'll say LaTeX, and that'll be okay too. And identifying sources for downloading multiple BibTeX records at a time. So how do you get stuff into the programs and software you use to generate citations in LaTeX using BibTeX records, and finally, how to apply various citation styles within in-text citations and bibliographies generated within LaTeX. All right. What is your familiarity with LaTeX and or BibTeX? Yeah, there's a little bit of knowledge, but maybe not a whole lot. It depends on your program that you're in, what kind of field you're studying in. That might dictate if you're expected to use this word processing. I don't know if you call it word processing software. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Justin to do a little more intro.
Great, thanks, Grace. So just an intro to BibTeX. We're not going to talk in this session about using a LaTeX editor or getting into specifics on how to format, whether you're working on a research paper or article or doing some other kind of work in LaTeX. We will be talking about how to incorporate citations using BibTeX files and how to organize those. If you did need more help with LaTeX, you can ask me and Grace, and we can try to figure something out. We're definitely not LaTeX experts, but we're a really great resource if you have any questions on using BibTeX files and then how to incorporate those into those LaTeX documents that you're working on. So BibTeX is a file format. And these are used to describe references in LaTeX documents. And so BibTeX references are used to cite your sources in LaTeX word processing documents or in LaTeX editors, variety of LaTeX editors out there. And you'll be saving these BibTeX files onto your computer in some capacity and then incorporating them into your documents. Just so everyone's on the same page, BibTeX files have a .bib file extension. So if you see a .bib file at some point, right, that's going to be a BibTeX file. And depending on what program you set to open your .bib files, you'll see that icon on your desktop. For me, it just opens with a Notepad editor, but you could associate that with different programs like Notepad++ or etc. Next slide. Okay, great. So this is an example BibTeX file or entry. So this is what it would look like if you downloaded a BibTeX file from a database. It's going to have all this information in it. This is what it looks like if you open up just a notepad document with using your BibTeX file. So you can see there's a lot of information about the source here. You can see at the very beginning it says at article. So that's referring to this being a journal article. So you don't get overwhelmed with how much information is in here. It may be useful to you to know about this. You can actually edit this file if you'd like, but you don't get too overwhelmed with what is in the actual BibTeX file. Just for your information, this is kind of the metadata or information about the source that will be used by LaTeX or BibTeX reference manager, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, called JabRef. This is the information that it's going to be taking, and then it displays it in different ways. Okay, so how do you get these BibTeX files, right? This is important because you need the BibTeX actual file to be able to reference in LaTeX or however else you're using it. Maybe you're collecting these in a reference manager. So how do you export BibTeX files? Most databases have the capacity to allow you to export your references in this file format. And you can download, like Grace was saying at the beginning, one of the learning outcomes, you can download multiple sources at one time, saving you time. And so this, like it says there, useful for adding to JabRef, which is a citation manager we'll talk about in a couple minutes. Or you can even use these files to build your own BibTeX database. You don't need any external programs to use BibTeX files in LaTeX, but we'll talk about a couple that'll make it easier for you to manage these files. Okay, so exporting BibTeX files in Archive. You can see the instructions there. If you're looking at the presentation on the Mentimeter platform and not in Zoom, the image is very large. Apologies for that, but it just walks you through how to export a BibTeX file. So at first you would be doing some sort of search to find your sources. I didn't put that instruction in here, but that's right. You're going to be searching for something in Archive, right? You found that it's relevant for whatever you're writing on, and you're going to want to use that in your LaTeX editor. Okay, so you're going to go to the right-hand side of Archive. In the right-hand pane there, there's a hyperlink that says Export BibTeX Citation. You would click on that. You can copy the formatted citation, and you can do a couple things with that. You can paste it into yeah, you can paste that into a text document and save that with a BibTeX file extension. So that kind of grabs information, saves it on your clipboard on your computer, and then you can paste that directly into a bib.bib file that you're doing, or you can export these in bulk and then import the BibTeX file directly into JabRef. It's not super... Which story, Grace?
I'm just going to jump in here and just mention, so Archive, for those that might not know, is a preprint server used quite frequently in physics and a few other fields, but Archive is just one of the places that you might be, but would be most relevant to those working in physics and other related disciplines. So this is just an example of a place, but maybe only relevant as a specific example to those that would be using that preprint repository.
Yeah, exactly. And if we go to the next slide here. Okay, so this is another database for mathematics, so MathSciNet. This one, you can get to the export function directly from the search results page. So you would do your search, then you would click on whichever references you wanted to download, and there you can do a batch download, and from the batch download drop-down menu that appears when you click on that option, you would select citations and choose the BibTeX option. You just select retrieve marked, and you can, again, copy and paste the formatted citations to either your BibTeX database, which you're creating in whatever like word processing file or program that you're using, or you can do that directly into JabRef using the instructions from the previous slide. And we'll circulate the slides at the end of the presentation just so everyone can look at these instructions later on. And then just finally, in the Web of Science database, what you would do is, again, you would perform your search right on the search results page. You select Save to Other File Formats. Well, you would click off which files you want to save. You would click off, select Save to Other File Formats, and then you would select BibTeX, and you would click the Send button, which is in the screenshot there. And then this actually saves the sources in their own .bib file, which you can then just use directly in your LaTeX editor, or you can import those into JabRef. And we're going to talk about JabRef right away here. Okay, so quick poll just to see if anyone's familiar with JabRef. JabRef's a citation management software that is really handy for using BibTeX files. Okay, we got a novice, we got a newbie. Okay, so for everyone that doesn't know, JabRef, like I'm saying, it's a reference manager, or some people say citation management software. Basically, it provides an interface to manage a BibTeX database, which is really useful because, as we saw at the beginning of the presentation, those individual BibTeX files, right, it has a lot of information in there, can be hard to read depending on what program you're using to open your BibTeX files with, right? Just makes it easier. I'll show you a couple tips that does that. It's also can link to PDF documents on your computer, which is really nice. It can actually import that information directly into JabRef, and it's also free. It's open source, so that's always nice too. If you did need to install JabRef either right now or sometime after the presentation, the link is there. You just click on the download menu option and then just choose whichever system you're using. Just so everyone knows, it runs on Java virtual machines. So depending on whether or not you have Java installed, that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so once you have JabRef installed, you've decided you want to use it. You want to use it to organize your references for your LaTeX documents or for use in your LaTeX editor. You're going to want to create a new library. And so a new library is going to be all of those references that you're using in a particular document. And you're going to want to save your library in the same folder as your LaTeX document that you're working on. So LaTeX will be using citation keys for each of these sources, and it's going to need to be in the same folder as your LaTeX document that you're working on for it to read the references properly, just so everyone knows. Okay, so once you have JabRef open, installed, you got your libraries created, right? You're going to want to add references. So this is where you are going to be using those BibTeX files, whether you're downloading .bib files directly from Web of Science or possibly Scopus or another database, or whether you're copying and pasting the citations from Archive, for example. That's right going to be how you're adding these references to JabRef. It's fairly easy. So if you have a .bib file, all you have to do is drag and drop straight from your wherever directory you have your .bib file stored directly into JabRef. It'll update with, and the same, you can do the same thing with a PDF. So you have a PDF on your computer, you know you're going to want to cite it in your LaTeX document that you're working on. Just drag and drop straight into your JabRef library that you have set up for your LaTeX document, whatever you're working on. You can also use what's called a DOI, or Digital Object Identifier, to look up bibliographic details of a source. This is a little more time consuming. You may not even know what a DOI is. Don't worry about that at this point. It's just another option that you can use to add references that I wanted people to know about. The one thing with JabRef, you really want to check accuracy of the information that's going in. Sometimes it doesn't read characters properly. You'll have to fix up your citations, and I have a slide on that coming up. Okay, so verifying accuracy of references. So one option is once you have your source added in JabRef, you can right-click and you can see an option called Get Bibliographic Data from DOI, ISBN, etc. Again, we're talking about DOIs. Don't necessarily need to know what that is, but JabRef will use this permalink, basically is what it is, and it'll pull metadata or other information about that source and compare it to what you have in JabRef listed as your source. So it's basically like a double check. It'll give you an option to double check which fields you want to update or not, right? Like I'm saying, sometimes the characters aren't read properly, so apostrophes turn into something else. This gives you a chance to fix it up, compare the two versions, and update fields as necessary. You get to choose which fields to merge as well. Another option is you can manually update fields using the field editor at the bottom of the JabRef window. This is more time consuming, but maybe, you're not getting the right information based on your .bib file or how JabRef is reading it, or you've tried the Get Bibliographic Data option by right-clicking on your source, not coming up. You can manually update it as well. Linking a BibTeX file to, or linking BibTeX to a PDF file that you have, very easy, right? I mentioned it before. All you do is just drag a PDF file of an article or really any source that you're needing to cite or manage right into the JabRef reference software into your library. Like I'm saying, the PDF article can be located anywhere on your computer. It's that library that you want to save the JabRef library in the same location as your LaTeX editor document. Okay, citing in LaTeX. So there's a couple different ways to do this. One of the easiest is, as you can see on that screenshot there, right-clicking on the source in JabRef and selecting Copy Citation Key. So the citation key is a unique identifier for a particular source. Typically, it includes the author's last name and the year of publication. And what it'll copy when you're copying it in LaTeX is that /cite, and then in the curly brackets, the citation key, that gets copied to your clipboard. Then you can paste that directly into your LaTeX document, and it'll cite whatever source that you copied that key with that's associated with that source. So this is an example of this. I'm not sure how big this is on your screen. Hopefully everyone can read it, but you can see in that literature review section at the bottom there, we say, according to Jamali et al., 2019, early career researchers are wary of the current peer review system. And there I pasted into that /cite, Jamali _2019. That's the citation key for the Jamali source, and that's how it's getting cited into my LaTeX document. And then if we go to the next slide, Grace. Great. So then once I produce a PDF of that document that I was working on, you can see under the literature review section, I have a little endnote that's been created with that superscript of 1 in square brackets. That's my Jamali source. So now citing in LaTeX, we have our citation, but we need our corresponding reference. So to make the reference list, which depending on your level of familiarity with LaTeX, you may already know this, but basically there's two parts to it. One, you want to be able to define the bibliographic style, And two, you want to reference the your library to build that entire list of references that you're using in your LaTeX document. So you can see there's these two commands that you need to enter into your LaTeX document, / bibliographic style, and then in the curly brackets, that's defining the citation style that you're using, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. And then underneath that, it says / bibliography, and in curly brackets, it said it's called references. So references, in this example, is the name of my BibTeX library or JabRef library. And right, that's the name of my BibTeX database. So that'll differ depending on what you choose to name it. You can name it whatever you want, right? But you'll need to know the name of that when you're building your bibliography in your LaTeX document. So this is what it looks like. You can see at the bottom there, in blue there, it has / bibliography style, plain, bibliography references. And then if Grace goes to the next slide there, once I produce a PDF of that, you can see there's a nicely formatted reference to correspond with my Jamali et al. Citation in the literature review. Okay. Citation styles. This will depend on what LaTeX editor you're using and that sort of thing, how exactly you're getting different bibliography styles into LaTeX and how you're citing them. So I have a couple examples here. There's one plain, right? Gives a description of that. References listed in alphabetical order and labeled numerically. There's one called unsorted. So it's basically the same as plain, except the references are going to appear in the order of citation. There's alpha, there's abbreviations, there's ACM, there's IEEE, on and on. And if we go to the next slide here, you can find more citation and reference styles at that citan.org link. I'll pop a link to these slides in the chat in a second here, so you can download these and access the links if you need. Get in touch with me or Grace if you run into problems with adding additional citation styles that your LaTeX editor will be using the BibTeX files, right? And we can work something out if you need any help with that. Okay, it's time for questions. If anyone wants to pop that into Mentimeter, just give you a few seconds here.
I had a question and then I forget what it was. I'll have to email you later, Justin.
Okay.
Question.
If there's no questions, you can feel free to pop them in the Zoom chat and I can get to them, but I'll pass it over to Grace to talk about the Better BibTeX extension.
Okay. So I guess what my question is, do you use Zotero? So that is my question for you. Or have you heard of Zotero or not? Because the next part of this conversation is about Zotero, largely because if prior to now getting to a stage in your program where you have specialized in an area that requires you to be writing in a LaTeX editor all the time, you may have already discovered and have been using JabRef. But say you didn't start with JabRef. Say you were taking a bunch of survey courses and really weren't getting to that level of need yet, and you have a whole library of stuff in Zotero. Or maybe you're working in a field where sometimes you write using LaTeX and other times it's just easy to do a quick assignment in a Word doc, and you want to have that flexibility to flip back and forth between the two. If that's the case, then Zotero might be an option for you. I'm not going to go into the details of Zotero as a reference manager today, although there are other workshops in the library that are specific to the functionality of Zotero, so check those out if you're interested. So I'm going to talk about this thing called Better BibTeX extension for Zotero. I've got the link there, which goes to a description of what it is, as well as where you can download it. So I'm going to see what happens here. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to share some different screens, and it's all going to get a little wild for 1 minute. Okay. All right. So this is where you download this thing, and it tells you a little bit more detail about why it might be something you want to download. It automatically generates citation key without key clashes. What does that mean? So if you have ever used Zotero before, you might already know or have tried to use it for creating bib files previously and had some difficulty and then migrated to something like JabRef. But Zotero already has an internal functionality to generate citation keys, which are those things you need to use, as Justin already talked about, for citing in your LaTeX editors. However, it's a little glitchy, the internal Zotero functionality for that. What happens is it has a mechanism for creating citation keys, and that mechanism, the formula for doing that is the same every time. Meaning that, for example, if you're citing two papers, two journal articles that were written by the same two authors in the same year, so technically they have the same authors and year of publication, their citation keys that get created according to what Zotero does by itself, it would create the same citation key twice. Well, that doesn't work for editing in LaTeX, and it all gets glitchy and it breaks down. So if you download this extension, it's an extension that functions within your Zotero. And it does a few more other things as well. And I find it works quite handily. So this is my Zotero library. And when you download Better BibTeX extension, it'll be a thing that the first time you download it, it will go through and just automatically create citation keys and clean up the existing citation keys that Zotero has created for all of the content in your Zotero library. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, depending on the size of your library. So that initial download time is a one-time off thing, and then it won't slow down your Zotero for the rest of it. And every time you add a new citation into Zotero, it will do that. Once you have it downloaded, you'll see that there's this Better BibTeX is one of the tools listed here. And you can open the preferences, and it'll sometimes takes a second to load. I'm going to do it again. It's going to work better this time. Okay. Now on my screen, you will see. So it allows you to modify what your citation key formula is, which is also like allows for greater modification around what those citation keys are. If you work in a field where or publication types that you're citing all the time where it is going to be a lot of duplication, and it'd be better off if your citation key was something more unique, then you can modify that yourself. And then down here you can see keeping citation keys unique. This is something that Zotero can't do by itself. It requires this extension. And you can keep keys unique across all libraries if you know you're using references all the time that you might mix and match for different publications you're writing, or within each library. And on conflict with a pin key, non-pin keys will be kept, or so you can keep them and it'll cause duplicates. So this is something you have to manually change. It has the functionality, but it will not do these fixes without you telling it to do it. So it'll keep the duplicates, or you can say post fixed causes key changes. So that's great. Okay, so as Justin was saying, in when you go to write, you're going to need to tell your LaTeX editor in your script there where this file is, your .bib file, and you've got options. So you're able to export it, and you can export it one time and then put it somewhere and use just those bib files that you've exported the one time, and that'll be the end of it. So if you make any changes in Zotero, then those won't be reflected in that .bib file that you've created, right? However, if you use the automatic export option, which is listed here in this Better BibTeX preferences found under tools, you have the option for it to automatically update your .bib file on an interval. Either here you can delay auto export, you can be paused and then you can do it yourself if you don't want it to do that updating all the time. On change, so every time you make a change within your Zotero files, it will update your .bib file that you've been using for editing, for citing within your LaTeX editor, or when idle, so you can tell it to do it when it's asleep. So you can see I've exported some here. Now, here's the thing. This is an example of where I've exported one single folder from my Zotero library, and I've created a .bib file of everything that's in there with those nice unique citation keys that Better BibTeX creates for me. And that's one that I'm able to update every time I change it or whatever I want to do. But the only thing that's in there are those citations that are in that folder. So all of a sudden, if I need something else from a different folder, I'd have to go and add it to it. Alternatively, what you could do is you could export your entire library to a .bib file, and then it's really much more seamless. You can just use the same thing all the time, and then if you have it on automatic export, then it'll just stay uploaded, and it's a much more seamless experience. However, if you're in a circumstance where you need to share your .bib files with somebody you're collaborating with, for example, or you are a graduate student working with a supervisor who wants to do some editing in the LaTeX editor and wants access to those files as opposed to like the finished PDF that is generated from what you're doing in your LaTeX editor, then you might not want to also give them your entire library. And you might want a specific .bib file that just has the content that you have cited and not your entire library, because it's just too much extra stuff. If that's the case, and you know that you're going to be sharing kind of in progress documentation and documents with others, I might recommend, if you're all kind of new at this, you might want to start with JabRef, because it has that functionality a little bit better to be creating those exact bib files of the content that you're citing, as opposed to this Zotero fix, which is great for those that have existing Zotero libraries and want to be able to use them in a LaTeX environment. thank you very much for attending, and we'll stick around after the recording is complete if people have any more questions and want to unmute and chat with us.